You walk into a crowded room and your body reacts before your mind has time to explain it. Your shoulders tighten, your eyes start counting exits. Part of you is already planning how to leave without turning it into a scene. People love to call that overthinking or tell you to loosen up, smile more, stop being so intense. That's the lazy diagnosis. What they keep missing is that crowded spaces don't just contain people. They contain noise, unpredictability, forced proximity, social performance, and the quiet pressure to look comfortable when your system is clearly not. So no, this reaction is not random, and it's not weakness. It's your nervous system picking up friction the way a smoke alarm catches heat before anyone sees flames. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you what it's actually detecting and why silence doesn't feel like escape to you. It feels like your whole system finally being allowed to unclench. If this lands a little too hard, tell me where you're watching from.
You step onto a packed train, shoulder to shoulder, and on paper, nothing is happening. No fight, no obvious threat, no reason to panic. Still, your chest tightens like the air just got rationed. Most people hear that and jump to the cheapest explanation. Social discomfort, shyness, you just hate crowds. That misses the mechanism completely. Environmental psychology has been pointing to something more exact for years. What strains the body is not just noise or the presence of other people, it is perceived crowding. The moment personal space shrinks, predictability drops, and your system stops feeling like it has room to move. That distinction matters a lot. This is not disliking people. It is your nervous system reacting to compressed boundaries in an environment that keeps taking more than it gives back. And modern life makes that worse, not better. Packed trains, open offices, loud restaurants, forced networking, a culture that treats constant availability like maturity. By the time people call it normal, many nervous systems are already paying for it. There's a reason dense public spaces hit so hard. Research on cognitive load keeps circling the same problem. The brain performs worse when too many unresolved signals stack at once. And a packed train is exactly that. Movement at the edge of your vision, bodies entering your space, shifts in tone, sudden stops, someone staring too long, someone standing too close. 100 tiny variables, none of them dangerous on their own, all of them demanding processing anyway. So while other people are casually talking or scrolling, your mind might be running a very different program, tracking who is too close, catching tension in a stranger's voice, mapping exits without realizing it, reading the carriage the way a smoke alarm reads heat before anyone sees flames. It's like standing in a room where everyone else hears the song, but you keep hearing the electrical buzz behind the wall. And here's where almost everyone gets it wrong. They call that sensitivity weakness because they've been trained to worship sociability and ignore the cost. But psychologically, this looks a lot less like fragility and more like vigilance. Your system is not reacting to proof, it's reacting to possibility, which leaves the real question sitting there, uncomfortable and unanswered. What exactly is your brain detecting in that space that everyone else has learned to tune out?
What you're feeling in those moments already has a real scientific frame. In neuroscience, it lines up with predictive processing, the idea associated with researchers like Anil Seth that the brain is not sitting around waiting for reality to arrive. It is constantly making bets about what comes next, then preparing the body before certainty ever shows up. So in a crowded space where movement, tone, distance, and intent keep shifting by the second, that system gets pushed hard. This is not fear of people. It is the metabolic cost of trying to predict too much, too fast, with almost no control over the environment. And it gets sharper than that. Work around threat detection, including Joseph Ledoux's work, makes one ugly truth very clear. The brain does not wait for courtroom-level proof. It reacts to possibility. A voice changes, someone steps too close, an exit is half blocked, a body turns the wrong way. Before your conscious mind even forms a sentence, your autonomic nervous system is already adjusting heart rate, muscle tension, and breathing. That's why the reaction feels so strange. Your body has already voted before your mind finishes the question. It's like a guard dog growling into the dark long before the house lights come on. And in dense environments, those shadows multiply fast. Now add the modern world on top of that. open-plan offices that erase boundaries, notifications that keep your attention half-fractured all day, packed transit systems, loud social spaces, the bizarre cultural rule that you should stay warm, approachable, and available at all times even when your system is clearly asking for space. That is not a neutral background. It is chronic cognitive load dressed up as normal life. Some people can filter most of that out without much friction. Others can't. And when you can't, the room does not just feel busy, it feels thick, like walking through wet concrete while everyone around you acts like it's just air. That's why the exhaustion shows up later and confuses people. The fog, the irritability, the craving for silence the second the door closes behind you. That is not random depletion, it is what happens after sustained prediction under uncertainty, like carrying a heavy box for an hour, then only realizing how bad it hurt when you finally put it down. And here's the part most people never stop to examine. If your brain is doing all of this automatically without asking your permission, then the real question is no longer why you get overwhelmed, it is what kind of system you have that refuses to ignore what everybody else has trained themselves to miss. Step into your room after a crowded night, close the door, and pay attention to what happens next. The silence doesn't feel empty. It feels like a valve opening. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw loosens. Your breathing stops fighting the air. That shift is not imaginary. In neuroscience, it lines up with vagal regulation, the body moving out of a high alert state and back toward recovery. So what people lazily call withdrawing is often something far more exact, your system recalibrating after carrying a load that dense environments quietly forced on it. And modern culture misreads that all the time. Loud cities, packed social calendars, open offices, group dinners that drag on for hours, the constant pressure to look engaged, warm, and available, none of that is neutral. Sociologists who study overstimulation in urban life keep landing on the same ugly pattern. High-density environments reward visible participation, not internal stability. The person who stays longer gets praised. The one who talks more gets read as healthy. But that standard is shallow. It ignores interoception, the brain's ability to register internal strain before the crash arrives. Some systems catch the overload early and respond. Others suppress it until it leaks out later as burnout, irritability, or that dead, foggy kind of exhaustion that ruins the next day. This is not fragility versus strength, it is awareness versus suppression. That's why leaving early gets judged so badly. People frame it as avoidance because they worship endurance even when that endurance is obviously fake. But psychologically, what you're doing lines up more with boundary regulation, the ability to recognize when the environment has exceeded your processing capacity and act before the damage compounds. Think about it like stepping out of a room where the oxygen has been thinning so slowly nobody notices. Most people stay until they're dizzy, then call that normal. You step out while you can still think clearly. And that is not weakness. That is discernment under pressure. This is where the whole story flips. The same system that makes crowded spaces feel heavy is often the one that reads tension faster, catches changes in atmosphere sooner, and notices subtle shifts other people bulldoze right past. So, if your mind is not built to ignore those signals, forcing yourself to absorb them just to look normal is not resilience. It's self-neglect dressed up as maturity, which means the real question is no longer why you need distance. It is what your mind has learned to detect so early, so precisely, that distance becomes the only honest response. So when the noise finally drops out and the room is yours again, what settles over you is not emptiness, it's resolution. Your system is no longer tracking 10 things at once, no longer adjusting to movement, tone, proximity, pressure. In a world built on digital overload, crowded cities, open office culture, and the exhausting performance of always seeming available, most people don't leave that state. They just get used to being half tense all the time. You didn't. And that is not a defect. That is clarity your body refused to betray. Sometimes the most aware mind in the room is the one that refuses to fake comfort. Needing silence after noise is not withdrawal. It is biological honesty. You're not rejecting people. You're rejecting unnecessary pressure. And not every environment deserves access to your nervous system. If this felt like permission you should have had years ago, you are not the only one who experiences crowds this way. Leave the word sanctuary in the comments if this resonated with you. I read every single one. And if you want to understand why certain people drain you faster than others, watch the next video. Protect your peace.